Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. And thank you for joining me on Thursday's episode of the Roundtable Talk Show. I am your host, Sharifa Hardy, and we have a very interesting show for you today. Like I always say, I don't know how it works, but somehow, some way it all comes together. And it has happened yet again. Today's show is primarily authors, right? We have some incredible stories today. And whenever we have authors and so many people with books and information, I have to make sure I pay attention and focus. So what I do is I grab my, what they call it, the handy dandy notebook, because I'm prepared to take notes today. And I suggest that you grab your notebook, or maybe, you young folks, y'all get y'all recorders out, your phones or whatever y'all do, but definitely want to take some notes for today's show. So before I go ahead and introduce our first guest, I'm going to invite you to do what I always ask you to do, and that is to go out and be an evangelist for this show. Find someone who is doing absolutely nothing, someone who needs to improve their life, someone who needs to be a better person, and invite them to tune in to the Roundtable Talk Show. Because you know what? They can learn a few things today from our guest. So while you're sharing the show, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first guest, Dr. Dee Matthews. She's the founder and CEO of Aldin Publications, an award-winning hybrid publishing company that is accredited by the Better Business Bureau and is a member of the Independent Book Publishers Association. Dr. Matthews is also an author, educator, and international speaker who has been named one of the top 100 leaders in education by the Global Forum on Education and Learning. Good morning, Dr. Matthews. How are you?
Everyone. It's my pleasure to be here.
It is my pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much.
I'm excited. I love to talk to people. One of the reasons I like to talk to people is I love to learn. Like, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always picking people's brains just so I can sound intelligent at the parties. I'll be like, let me tell you about this. Let me tell you about Dr. Matthews. But one of the reasons I wanted to start with you is because we have, authors on the show, so many authors. And with authors, I'm an author as well. We have questions from publishers, and it's very rare that we can get one to sit down with us and answer some of our questions. So I'm like, this is going to be a good show today. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
So as you mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of Aldin Publications, and it is a hybrid publishing company. So a lot of people are familiar with traditional publishers. A lot of people are familiar with self-publishers, and hybrid publishing is a relatively new literary journey, but it's right in the middle. So we provide author-assisted services. We take care of the editing, book covers, all of the professional aspects of the publishing process for authors. And I started as an author myself, and I am, like you said, a lifelong learner. I wanted to jump in with both feet. So I did a lot of research, connected with a lot of networks, and I realized in doing so that not everyone has the same network or resources that I do. So I started my hybrid publishing company because I wanted to be able to provide the opportunity for people who wanted to become published to have that opportunity without, having to learn everything on their own to self-publish, or without going through the lengthy wait and lengthy process of getting into a traditional publishing contract. So that's just a little bit of the background. Aside from that, I am one of those kids that as a little person sat under my grandparents and listened to all the stories. And I believe in leaving a written legacy. So I want to encourage as many people, particularly first-time authors from underrepresented backgrounds, to write their stories, to leave that legacy for their family members to be able to enjoy.
I think that's powerful. We went in two different directions, but I do think that's powerful. So I want to come back to it. Don't let me forget, because I want to come back to that sometime during this show. But I want to talk about the publishing aspect real quick. Okay. One of the things that I didn't hear you mention that publishers often mention when working with authors, especially new authors, is the whole following aspect. Like, they always want you to have that following in order to work with them. Like, if you have 12 million followers, of course, I'll publish your book, I'll bring you on. But for the average Joe or Jane out there, they don't have that type of following. So it may be difficult, again, like I said earlier, for them to even get the attention of a publisher. What would you say to someone who has that concern?
So for someone who has that concern, obviously one of the things that you will need to do in order to gain exposure for your book is to learn about book promotions, learn about marketing yourself. And there are some basic questions that you need to be able to answer as you're building your platform, as you're building your following. The beauty of being a hybrid publisher is I recognize not everybody knows the information that it takes to build an author platform. Now, a lot of people are familiar with social media, particularly if you're looking with people who are over 50 years old. They may or may not be active on social media. And if they are, they don't know how to use it for business purposes. So those are all things that we teach as a part of providing, again, the education, the tools, and professional services as a part of hybrid publishing.
I think it's a lot more people than just people over 50 who do not know how to use
I was
social
being
media.
nice.
I know, I can tell. That's why I'm like, okay, let's go back to that point, because I meet so many people, and some of these people, they could be in their 20s, 30s, even that young, but what they know how to do is to put out messages in the tweet, because as a business consultant, one of the things that people ask me is they say, Sharifa, everybody says that you can monetize social media. You can make money off of social media. And I've been tweeting, I've been posting, I've been, putting out these pictures, and I haven't made a single sale. And then I go to their social media and it's pictures of unicorns and raindrops. And I'm like, I don't know which you want the people to buy, you know what I mean? Like, so I understand that people don't always understand, like you said, the business aspect of social media. And that's what you can definitely help them with. Now, Dr. Matthews, I am going to come back to you, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next guest. Our next guest is Mr. Robert Rosen. He is the author of Nowhere Man, The Final Days of John Lennon, an international bestseller that's been translated into 6 languages. His latest book, Bobby in Naziland, A Tale of Flatbush, is a memoir about growing up in Brooklyn in the 1950s and 60s, surrounded by Auschwitz survivors and WW2 vets. Good morning, Robert. How are you?
Good morning, Sharifa. I'm doing pretty well, and I'm happy to be on the show. As you said, I'm an author. The book that you're just talking about, Nowhere Man, that came out 20 years ago, just over 20 years ago. And that was when that book was finally published. It was a life-changing kind of thing, that before I was an obscure freelance writer and Nowhere Man was published, I was suddenly a best-selling author. 20 years later, the book continues to sell. So I'm very happy with it. Here's the book. This is the paperback edition. It's available in all formats. This is my latest book. This is the hardback edition. When the hardback of Bobby in Naziland, that was published about a year ago. All my books were published by traditional publishers. And as Dr. Matthews was saying, she was talking about writing the book, publishing the book, promoting the book. I've always said that writing the book is hard. Finding a traditional publisher is harder, but the hardest thing is promotion. And it's very difficult. It's very time consuming, and it's very tedious. And one of the things that's changed a lot in the past 20 years is that more and more of the promotion, even when you're working with a traditional publisher, falls on the author. And it's really a hustle. And when Bobby and Naziland first came out, I was spending, more time doing the promotion and hustling and, trying to find people who were interested in talking about the book than I was writing, which is, how I prefer to spend my day. But the point I was going to make, like I said, Bobby and Naziland came out a year ago, and things started out pretty well. The book was selling pretty well. I was doing events all over the country. And then in New York, in St. Louis, in Miami, and Philadelphia, it was getting good reviews. And then, as everybody knows, in March, the pandemic hit and things came to a complete standstill, and small publishers, Bobby in Naziland was published by Headpress, which is a small publisher in the UK. They distribute all over the world, but it was really a heavy blow to publishers, to authors, especially authors who had new books out. And, since the pandemic, it's just, promotion is hard enough when things are going normally. But, after the pandemic hit, it just became next to impossible, and things came to almost a complete standstill. And this is the first promotional thing I've done since the pandemic started.
So I'm honored. I feel special now.
Well, and, my other book, I've got a third book out too. This came out about 10 years ago. It's called Beaver Street, A History of Modern Pornography. And I guess I have to be very careful what I'm saying with like 5 other women listening here. And, everybody has extreme feelings about pornography. But what that book is, it looks at late 20th century history and politics through a pornographic lens. And it gets into stuff like politicians like Richard Nixon, like Spiro Agnew, politicians who cry ban pornography the loudest are the most corrupt. And it's like, we all know what happened to Richard Nixon and Spiro Agnew and some other people who I talk about, like Edwin Meese, who was the attorney general under Ronald Reagan. He was also a big, anti-porn person. And all these people ended up being charged with corruption, impeached. They went to jail. They had to resign their office. So one of the lessons or the themes of Beaver Street is that, any politician who starts screaming ban pornography, immediately look into what kind of corrupt thing he's doing, and you'll find something.
We'll have to check out all of your books. I don't know if you oh, definitely. That's what we came here to do.
I'm going to read that one.
Right.
Which one? Beaver Street?
Oh, yeah.
I was about to say the same thing. I was like, let me introduce our next guest, because I'm pretty sure she has some views on that topic, Miss Isabel Mueller. She is the queer female founder of an underwear brand, Switch Underwear, prioritizing sustainability, inclusivity, and women's health. Good morning, Isabel. How are you?
Good morning, Sharifa. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me today.
You are so welcome. So, like Robert said, I don't know how much we can talk about certain things on the show, but you decided to launch your own queer underwear brand. Why?
So, and just to clarify, it's queer friendly because I identify as queer, and there are not a lot of women's underwear brands out there that advertise and appeal to women outside of the cis lens, right? So growing up and even up till today, I just feel like there hasn't been a lot of representation across the gender and sexuality identification range. But that's kind of just a small component of it. And I started Switch out of a need that I had. I'm an avid camper and a really busy professional in my daily work life. Like in the past, I've been freelance and managing multiple clients, multiple jobs, running errands all across LA, just constantly on the go, which I feel like a lot of women, that resonates with a lot of women, just like, whether it's, work to kids to family to whatever, or if it's like constantly traveling for work, or we're all so busy. And I wanted this product. So Switch, our MVP, our one product right now, because we're a pretty lean startup, is just a classic higher rise bikini that has really flat, flexible fasteners at each hip. So you can switch out your underwear super easily on the go without having to strip first. So say you're like out and about and you're really sweaty, or you're ovulating that week, so there's extra discharge, or you've gotten your period and you didn't know you were getting it and you bled through your underwear. Like, all you have to do is pull your pants down to your knees and swap out your underwear, and then you're good to go. And you put the other pair in the go bag it comes with. So it's kind of addressing that daily need that really isn't talked about. Like we're addressing periods, right? In the underwear industry, big brands like Thinx and Knix are coming out with absorbent underwear, which is incredible, revolutionary, like, and changing the game from a sustainability perspective, because the amount of waste we go through every year in the US alone on a feminine hygiene product standpoint is like insane, like billions and billions of products in our landfills every year, and none of which are compostable or recyclable. So it's huge from an environment perspective, because it's eliminating that need for those single-use products. But what the Switch underwear does is give us another option. Like, those absorbent underwear aren't for everyone. Some people just like, for some people, there's nothing better than just to like get into a fresh pair. And for me, as an avid camper, like, I'd be wanting to pack light. And if I'm camping in really cold environments, like, I don't know if any of you camp, but to change.
No, I camp in hotels.
Great. Yeah. Well, like to change, you have to kind of like lie down and like shimmy out of your clothes. But that's just one example. Like, say you're in the car.
You are passionate about this.
I am. Yeah, I could talk forever.
No, I can tell. I mean, it's not a bad thing. I like people to talk to me. The people who irritate me are people who answer me yes or no answers. I'm like, talk to me. Why am I pulling to help you? But I see your passion in this, which is interesting, because when I was reading your bio, the question that came to my mind is like, okay, I understand. Because I had another, now he's a really good friend of mine, Count Classy. He's a hip hop artist, and he comes on. He's like, I'm, one of the first queer hip hop artists. And so I was like, okay, I get the whole, you're queer, but like, I don't say, I'm a straight talk show host. Like, I'm just a talk show host, so I was kind of curious on how all this works together. And his explanation to me was that it's not represented. And so that's why he wanted to put it out there in the forefront.
Exactly.
And so you, to me, basically kind of gave me the same answer, or same response, in that you wanted to make sure that it was represented, especially, I guess, in the branding.
It's all about representation. Like, seeing people out there that are doing something that you want to do, that identify the way you want to identify, gives you inspiration. And I feel like that's why a lot of people in the LGBTQ, work life aside, in the LGBTQ plus community struggle so much, because there's such a lack of representation, because the world is telling them to be straight. So it's so hard to find yourself. So a lot of our customers who identify as queer or allies, like, they're so inspired and excited about the fact that we're open about having LGBTQ plus staff members, including myself, because it gives them inspiration, and it shows people from our community doing great things. So it has very little to do with the actual design of the underwear. The underwear is for everyone with a vagina, but like saying
that's not for Robert. Okay. Yes, unfortunately, we got to find something that's for everyone. I want to come back to you, Isabel, but I want to go ahead and introduce our next guest, Miss Kathy Mckinnon. She's a mother, 3-time #1 international best-selling author, transformation coach, and founder of Wellness Warrior Coaching. I'm a warrior. I love to find out more about that. Good morning, Kathy. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me on.
You are so welcome. You know what? I was going to mention this earlier when you first came on. I was like, nah, I'll leave it for the show, because you're a professional person, right? So professionals tend to be kind of intimidating, right? But then I look over your shoulder and I see like 3,000 medals, and I'm like, okay, she is fierce. So I'm like, I don't even know. I got to be careful with Kathy, because I'm already intimidated.
This, the medals behind me, it's really, I put it up as a reminder to myself, because in high school, I was absolutely not an athlete. I was overweight. I was not in shape. I was the very last one to run that dreaded 1 mile test in gym class. Essentially walked it, because I said, I don't do running. It was not my thing. And then after my cancer diagnosis, that was like my wake up call to say, I really need to start getting healthy. Running was not yet a part of that. I still did not like running. I just couldn't get into it. And over time now, I found this passion for working out and being outside and running. And so this is my reminder to myself that like I can do these hard things, these races and these different things that years ago I couldn't even fathom because I couldn't run 1 mile. Now I've been able to accomplish these things, not always pretty, not always the fastest, not always the happiest when I get to the finish line, but I'm able to accomplish them. And so it's just this reminder to ourselves. And I think we all need to have those kind of anchors or visuals in our lives to remind ourselves that even when we're doubting ourselves, like we can do these things.
I think that is so beautiful. And what it reminds me of is, you said that you were this little kid, you were one way, and then now we're looking at you and we're like, wow, she's fierce. But we always assume that, okay, it's easier for the other person or for someone else. But what was that? It's always usually like one day or one book or one time where we're like, you know what, I can be different. What was that moment like for you?
I call it the trifecta of moments because there was no like one magic light switch that just said, all of a sudden today we're going to be different. I was in the midst of a 5-year infertility journey. I was depressed because I thought I'm not going to be a mother. I was beating my body up with different infertility treatments and exhausting myself to all ends because I desperately wanted to be a mother. I thought that was my mission in life. And I couldn't understand why it was not happening. And in the midst of that was when I was first diagnosed with cancer. And so that's when I just thought, like, I don't even know where my life is going or how this is going to go, because not only could I not have my baby now you're telling me I have cancer and I don't know how this is going to impact the rest of my life. I was diagnosed with cancer. I was not yet 30. So I'm like, if I'm not yet 30 and I have these two things that are significant against me, like, how is this going to play out? And in my mind, the only way this was going to play out was essentially the one sentence I said to the surgeon who did my cancer surgery was, I'm not done yet. I'm not done living, and I'm not done figuring out what this life is meant to be. But I know, like, the only way to do it is to get through this and clean up my act and clean up my life so that I can figure out what this is supposed to be and meant to be. But in my 20s, like, I wasn't ready to resign and say, this is how it's supposed to be.
Wow. Oh my God. Your spirit is so amazing. It's so beautiful. You are so welcome. I want to come back to you, but I want to go ahead and introduce our next guest, Miss Milana. She is an international best-selling author. She's a healer and spiritual guide. Milana became a writer in order to share the ancient wisdom and magic of her Romani ancestry that she uses every day to make a difference in the lives of others. Good morning, Milana. How are you?
I feel really good, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm just excited.
I am so excited to have you. Now, I like the way, I switched things up because I started with Dr. D for a specific reason. I'm like, she's a publisher. We got all these authors. Let's talk to her, see what she has going on. Okay, go over to Robert. Then I'm like, let me talk to Isabel, because Robert opened that door about, pornography. And I knew Isabel was going to find that entertaining. So I wanted to end with you, Milana, because I saw that you would get something or pick up something for the other guests. What is it what stands out to you for the people on the panel? That's what I want to say.
First of all, I am here for you. There is no other reason. I'm not here for me, because I've done my part of life is about me, done, over. I'm here for you. I'm super excited to find one of your biggest problems, biggest walls, and then help you break it and solve it. And so if you could voice, maybe not now, but later, something that is in your heart that you just can't get over, you can't find a solution For some reason, I've been told that I have that magical ability.
I got a problem for you, Milana. I'm ready for you. You talking to the wrong person. I stay ready. Let me tell you, hold on now, because this is a special moment and I'm being vulnerable and sensitive. So this is personal. I'm relating. So I need y'all to bear with me. Milana, I'm trying to crack that 5 billion mark. That's it right there. I need a solution.
Say it again.
I'm trying to be a billionaire. I need $5 billion.
All right. So first of all, you need the reason why. It is not the money that you need. If you just wanted the money in the bank, that's impossible to desire because it's just sitting in the bank. It does nothing for you. You want it to do, to use, to spend. And here's my question. What do you want to spend it on?
I want to spend it on making sure I never had to go back to work. I just want to travel. I want to buy an island in Bora Bora. And I'm going to be nice. I'm going to be a sweet person because I'm going to let the people visit if they can come to Bora Bora.
So this is a death sentence.
Did you say a death sentence, Milana?
Correct? Yes.
Did you just say my dream was a death sentence?
I am so honest because not many people know it. But the only reason we're alive and happy and vibrant is because we're doing what we love. As soon as you cut it off, you don't have to work anymore. You don't know what you wished for. You're wishing for all of the energy that comes to you from your, I don't know your spirituality, but let's say creator, someone who you think is higher than you, or if you're not a believer, from nature. We're not the source of our energy. We have it coming towards us. And it's coming because we choose to serve others. The more we serve others and give through our work, through our passion, it doesn't matter what it is, but with open heart and with kindness, we share and give to others. That's our work. The more we do that, the more life, energy we get. This is how we stay alive. If you say, I don't want to work another minute in this life, your wish will be granted. But what did you choose? You chose to cut off your life source, this vibrant, passionate energy. Think about your wish another time.
That was a test, Milana. That was a test. I was just trying to see what you was going to say. I knew that was the answer. That's why I get up every morning and serve entrepreneurs and help entrepreneurs, because I do understand the law of reciprocity. For everything that you give, you will be blessed tenfold. So that's why I appreciate all of you for being here today. Dr. D, what do you think? What about our panelists?
Look, I am enjoying this. I'm just sitting here thinking, wow, I am among some amazing people, international best-selling authors. This is just awesome because, I'm sure each of us has some pearls of wisdom that we could share with others just here on the panel, but definitely to the audience watching so that they can, again, share in some of the knowledge that's represented here.
One of the things that I found interesting was the second part of what you said earlier about the legacy. And so to me, that's what I felt when Robert was talking. I was like, you know what? That's kind of like what Dr. D was saying about leaving this a written legacy. But why is that so important to you?
It is very important to me personally first, because like I said, I was that little kid listening to everything. And now that I'm an adult and my grandparents are all deceased, I think about the stories that they told, and I wish I could hear them again for another time, verify some details, and again, be able to pass it on to my children and grandchildren. So when it's not written down, when you can't capture it in that way, you miss some of those important details, and it doesn't necessarily get passed down the way that it should. So that's the personal side of it for me. The other part of it is when I first became a publisher, actually my very first consultation with a potential author, the conversation was about a gentleman who had over 40 years of poetry that he had written. It was a huge binder of poetry that he had written. And after we talked about the publishing process and all of that, he fell ill. He decided he wasn't going to move forward with publishing, and then he later passed. And I thought about just the wealth of information that has now been denied to the world and even to his family outside of those who know about that binder that he left behind. There's so much that was, beautiful poetry that we now may never be able to read or enjoy. So those are the reasons for me why it's so important to leave that written legacy, both personally and professionally.
Yes. Isn't there an expression that says when an elder dies, it's like a library burning down?
Oh my goodness. That is so true. That is so true. Such a wealth of information.
Yes. Robert, what are your thoughts on what Dr. D had to say?
Well, I'm thinking back to what Milana was saying when you said that you wanted your $5 billion and you wanted to live on Bora Bora and cut yourself off from reality, pretty much. One of the
That's
things.
not what I said, Robert. I don't remember saying all of that, but let's go. Let's go with your thoughts.
Bora Bora sounds pretty far from reality, though. I'm sure it's pretty real there once you get there. But that made me think about my John Lennon bio, Nowhere Man. And one of the things I wrote about was, John Lennon and Yoko Ono, two of the wealthiest, most famous people on the earth. And what motivated John to accumulate all this money and all this fame was that he was dealing with a lot of pain that had to do with his childhood, which I'm not going to go into the details. You can read the book, but he was always looking for a way to stop the pain. And he thought that unlimited doses of money and fame would stop the pain. He had tried other things too, primal scream therapy, drugs, LSD, but money and fame were like really the two big things. And what he found out was that not only did money and fame not stop the pain, but they exacerbated it. And they just kind of shined a spotlight and just brought more into the forefront the things that were causing him pain. So, that's what the last bit of conversation made me think about.
So basically, you and Milana have teamed up against me and my $5 billion, because that's what I hear right now. That's what I heard.
Well, I'm not teaming up against you. I just think, that what you were saying reminds me of something I spent a lot of time writing about and researching and thinking about. And, it just becomes explicitly clear that, whatever your problems are, whatever you want, that money and or fame are just not the answer. That, they might solve certain problems, like you're not going to go hungry, you'll always have a roof over your head, but they'll just create this whole new set of problems that you didn't anticipate and are even more complicated and more painful than the problems that you were hoping that the money would help you overcome.
Mm-hmm. That's what they say. More money, more problems. If you are just now tuning in to the Roundtable Talk Show, we appreciate your support. Please go ahead and share the show. I want to thank Jade Elizabeth for tuning in, Brian Charles, Jason Morton, Bill Gibson. Jade Elizabeth says, wow. Mary Lynn Mascot says, great panel and host, vibrant people, to use Melania's word. So I think the word today is vibrant. What do you think, Milana? You could change the whole course of the conversation. We were talking about authors and books, and you're an author as well, but vibrant.
That's what I do. My goal is to bring that extra aliveness and energy into everyone's life. And I wanted to correct myself, and it's a very, very important correction about the money. I am not against having billions of dollars. I'm not against money. That is why I asked you, what is it for? Mm-hmm. Because if you had that passion in you, that you wanted to build, let's say, a hospital for very sick kids, or you wanted to build a community for sick elders. If that was your purpose and passion, and that's what you wanted the money for, you would get it.
Oh, that's good, because I already know what I want this $5 billion for. I want to build as Sharifa, my company, so I can hire everybody. I was laid off 8 times, and I don't like people not having jobs and not being able to feed their family. So that's my why and my motivation for everything that I do. Plus, I want to give me some medals on the wall like Kathy. Do they have medals for that?
I mean, I'm sure we can craft you one. We'll make a big number 5 just for you.
What, is that for $5 billion?
Yeah.
Okay, absolutely. I was about to say, because I was like, wait a minute, I was confused. I usually get number 1. That's what I said, Isabel. I'm like, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah, we're gonna make a number 5. We'll put some bling on there for you to make sure you get that 5.
Okay.
But it all goes back to what Melania was saying, right? It goes back to your why. Mm-hmm. Whether it's your health, whether it's your personal relationships, whether it's your career, whether it's your spirituality, like, what is your why is your overarching personal mission statement, and everything you do in those areas of your life should feed into your why. And if they're not feeding into your why, they're a mere distraction. Mm-hmm. And you're spinning your wheels. Mm-hmm. So your why is so important. And I think as we go through life, our why maybe changes or evolves, but we have to keep reverting back to that and checking in with ourselves. Like, these actions I'm taking today or this week or this month, do they feed into the why? Mm-hmm. And if they don't, then we just need to stop doing them. And I think so many people, especially in today's society, as Isabel was saying, like, we're busy, right? We're doing all the things. We want to do all the things, but we need to step back and check in. Are all the things that we're doing really feeding our purpose?
Mm-hmm. What else that does is when you ask that why, it allows you to say no to the things that don't align with it. Wow. And so many times we want to say yes just because we can, but if it's not aligning with our why, should we say yes? And we should probably take that opportunity to say no more often than we do, and reduce some of the, again, pouring out that we give. Not that it's wrong to give to others. You do want to give to others, but you still want to make time for yourself. And because, as a woman, I'm always giving to others, nurturing others, giving of myself. You have to take that time to be able to carve out some time for yourself and be able to say, no, this is my time, and take that self-care.
No is such a powerful word, right? Especially as women, we are caregivers. We want to take care of everybody. We want to feed everybody. We want to make sure everybody's happy. That's just our intuitive nature. But when we can say no to those things that are draining as opposed to lighting us up, it completely shifts the dynamic of our lives.
I love that. Absolutely.
And then one of my mom's favorite ones is understanding that no is a complete sentence. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with. We want to say yes. We kind of feel pressured into no. We feel guilty, or we pressured into saying yes. We feel guilty when we say no. But, hey, that I like, as I got older, it's easier for me to say no, and it's a complete sentence. That's it. So, but I don't, Robert, speak to us. I don't necessarily think that's all, only women. I mean, sometimes men deal with the same thing, the ability to say no.
The need to say no? Well, I've been thinking about all these other things like why. And, since everybody, or just about everybody on the panel, is an author, I mean, my why, I started thinking, why did I go into this stupid business of publishing books? It's such a difficult business. It's so difficult to make money. And, I just don't, all right, for one thing, I don't think that anything you do, that money should be the primary motivation. That, certainly money is important, especially if you live in New York City, that so much that you can't do if you don't have money. And I did go through, many years ago, I went through the whole starving author phase, and it was terrible. But, why do I write? Why do I expend so much energy on publishing books and trying to make a living at it? And, the answer is pretty basic and pretty primal, is that I have always felt a need to communicate. And that's why I write. I've always heard this voice in my head that I just felt I should put down on paper. And, now I've been pursuing this professionally since 1974. I mean, that was a long time ago, but the thing that, keeps me going through the difficult years, that, helps me stay level-headed during the moments when things are going extraordinarily well, is just, it's always this primal need to communicate. And
why these stories, Robert? But why, like John Lennon?
Pardon me?
Why these stories? Why John Lennon?
Oh, John Lennon was something that fell into my lap back in 1979. A close friend of mine, somebody who I work with on my college newspaper, was my neighbor. He was hired as John Lennon's personal assistant. And the day that he was hired, he came to me and he said, "We have to collaborate on a book about John Lennon." And, at the time, I was basically a cab driver who would publish an occasional freelance article. And, I was not making my living as a writer. And, this was certainly an amazing opportunity. And a year later, John Lennon was murdered. And, that's when our project went into gear. And one of the things that happened when I was collaborating on this project is that my friend gave me Lennon's personal diaries that he kept during the last 6 years of his life, 1975 through the end.
Wow. Do you still have them?
No. I don't have them, but the book is really a journey through Lennon's consciousness that is based on what I learned from reading the diaries. And I kind of tell the story from inside Lennon's head. And it took me, a lot happened between the time that my friend gave me the diaries and the book was published. And that's part of the book, that what happened over the 18 years that the book remained in unpublished limbo. But, now it's been 20 years since the book came out, and the reason that people still keep buying it and talking about it and, want to talk to me and, have me on their shows to talk about the book is that What Nowhere Man is kind of the autobiography that Lennon did not have the opportunity to write because he was killed. And his diaries appear to be a rough draft of that autobiography. And I was just, able to somehow use the diaries to capture Lennon's spirit and his energy and to put it across in, this book that has just been, a remarkable thing. And I just, thanks.
It sounds remarkable.
Yes.
To John Lennon for giving me this opportunity and, for changing my life.
Dr. D, what are your thoughts on what Robert had to say?
As he's talking about it, I'm because I haven't looked at the book description or synopsis or anything else. I wonder, is that on the synopsis that this was, inspired by his actual diary? And I'm thinking about all these wonderful selling points. That's just how my mind works. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. Like, that's just an amazing story of how it came to be. And, just because this is how I think and who I am, I'm, just wondering, is this a part of kind of the behind the scenes that Robert talks about as he's being interviewed, the process of getting the book out? Because not only is the book important, and it's great that, 18 years later, it's still being talked about, it's still being sold, but, people want to know that behind the scenes, and that would be a great way to revitalize interest in the story, in you as an author, and again, continue to build this author platform and gain momentum for this, what we refer to as a backlist title.
Well, that's one of the amazing things about the book is that 20 years when the book first came out, there was just this unbelievable rush of publicity all over the world. And 20 years later, you know, unlike what I've had to do with my latest book, Bobby in Naziland, which is just constantly hustle to get the word out there, that with Nowhere Man, I don't have to do anything, that it just keeps happening. I mean, this past week, a couple of days ago, actually, the book was mentioned in the Wall Street Journal. I didn't have to do anything. It happened that they were writing an article about this house that the Lennons own with all their millions of dollars in Palm Beach, Florida. The house was sold, and in the article in the Wall Street Journal about the house being sold, they referenced my book. So, you know, that kind of thing happens all the time. And, you know, like I said, you know, the hustling, the tedium of like writing to people, I would prefer not to do that, but it has to be done. I would prefer to spend, you know, my working hours writing a new book, which is what I'm doing. But with Nowhere Man, I don't have to do that. It's become its own energy force, and it just keeps happening. And, you know,
yeah, but you did the work initially. I mean, that's when people say it just happens, you know, I think it happens and doors open, but initially you did the work. You wrote the book, you published it, you created it for it to exist, for it to just so happen to wind up in the Wall Street Journal, you know?
Right. This week.
Right. This week. So, yeah. Kathy, what are some of the things that you do? Because Robert talked about the hustle, the grind of having to push a book, you know, 3 times bestseller.
Yes. It is and especially right now during the pandemic, it's a very different dynamic. I had one book that came out pre-pandemic, and that was much different. To Robert's point, you could do in-person events. You could, you know, do book signings. It was very different. Now it's obviously virtual. We're doing book discussions. We're doing social media. My son's book just launched last week in the midst of the pandemic.
Wow, your son has a book?
He does, yes. He came to me and he said he wanted to be an author like Mom. And so how does one say no to that?
Yeah.
Moms do, though. Parents do. Sometimes they laugh at their kids' dreams. I'm so glad you're supportive and you supported him.
Although I was a little cautious because when he's a 9-year-old boy. So when he said he wanted to write a book, I imagined it was going to be like video games or Nerf guns or boy stuff of a 9-year-old. So when I asked him what he wanted to write about, I was bracing myself for that typical little boy answer. But what came out of his mouth was he wanted to write about acts of kindness.
Oh my God, you did something right. Whatever you
Wow.
I was just like, my job here is done.
Oh my God.
I can take the rest of it off.
So did he write the book?
He wrote the book.
An interview with your son. Like, you can come with him. You know what I mean?
Excellent. And he loves it. So, and I let it be his project because I wanted him to understand that this is not just kind of like an easy thing to do. Like Robert is saying, like there's actual work involved. He held the meetings with the publisher himself. Of course, I was in the next room, but he sat on Zoom with the publisher. He reviewed the illustrations. He gave his input. Like, it was his project. And since then, you know, he's done some social media with me. He's been on some interviews with me, but it's very different. Like the week of the book launch, yeah, it was very intense on, we need to do the social media postings. We need to go live on social media. We have the radio interview. So yeah, it's a hustle. It is. And now, you know, it's a different dynamic. I would love for him to have that in-person book event experience, and I'm sure we will once we can. But in the meantime, getting that word of mouth out is just a little bit different, right? We have to make more phone calls. We have to send more emails. We have to be maybe ever present on social media where maybe we wouldn't have been before. But the little guy is loving it, and his book is doing well. He was on the Amazon bestseller list. We got him close to #1, but hey, he's 9 and he made the bestseller list. So I couldn't be more proud of the little dude.
Congratulations. That is amazing. Milana, what are your thoughts?
Well,
you're just smiling. I'm just watching you smile.
I have 2 best-selling books, and I self-published both of them. And I will tell you that it was super, super easy. And maybe some advice for the authors and maybe someone who listens who wants to self-publish. Because if you know how to market and advertise, it takes only 5 minutes of your time, and then it is done for you. You don't have to do anything else. And the trick is Amazon advertisement. If you know how to set it up, then literally you spend 5 minutes, and then for years and years and years, my books have been on the bestseller list for many years. You don't do anything. You simply don't. And so this is knowledge. Things are so easy when you have the right knowledge, and things are so difficult when you don't have knowledge. So my advice would be seek that knowledge, because for every problem that you have, there's a solution that you don't know yet. We live in the times where all of the secrets in the world are now available for you. Same with publishing, with writing, everything. But what you need to do is to have that question, hey, I want very easy advertisements and marketing, not for me, for others. If you have that background, not for me, for others, so that my work reaches as many people as it can, then suddenly the solution comes to you. And that's where I connect my work and spirituality. Go into meditation, go into silence, go into prayer, go into whatever it is, and say, this is not for me. This is for the benefit of others. And then suddenly things will start happening. This is how I got completely random information. When I self-published the books, I knew nothing about writing or self-publishing or publishing or advertisement or marketing, but I went into that state of silence. And suddenly people started contacting me who I didn't know even existed, whose job it is to teach writing, publishing, self-publishing, marketing, advertisements. And they said, here's what you do. And it was very, very easy. And then it was a very smooth ride. So always keep that in mind when you face a problem, is that the solution is there. There's absolutely no problem without a solution. But what we need to do is to seek it actively and not just rely on ourselves. Always, always, always rely on communities. There's such amazing big communities of people who've done exactly what
you want to do. I agree. Definitely. I agree with you, Milana. I'm going to say this, though. You know, I think so often we like to struggle that we want life or we want things to be difficult. But just because something doesn't have to be difficult doesn't mean it's not always easy, because successful people, their path has been difficult. They've overcome so many different challenges. Life didn't just open up for the most successful people. They've gone through something. From the people I've interviewed, from the people I have on the Roundtable Talk Show, I can speak to just about any guest. And I guarantee, like Robert was saying, he had those days when he was the starving author. So that they may have the information, and getting the information may be easy, but in even what you said with the Amazon example, you have to have the advertising budget to be able to pay for advertising in order to do what you mentioned. So I always like to work with people where they are, because some people don't have that advertising budget, and they have to focus a little bit more on the hustle and the grind, as opposed to the people who just like, you know what, let me spend $20,000, $10,000, $5,000, $1,000, get it to the top of the list, do some Google advertising, Facebook advertising, Amazon advertising, and it's done. So it's easy when you have the resources. But I agree with you, Milana, the resources are out there. You know, meditate. They might just come to you. Now, we are coming down to the last few minutes of the show. And what I love to do at the end of every show is just simply allow my guests the opportunity to speak directly to the audience, to everyone who is watching the show live, as well as everyone who is watching it in the archives, and let everyone know what you want them to take away from your appearance here today. And we're going to start with you, Isabel.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'm really inspired by the last few minutes, because we're talking so much about manifesting and following our intuition and asking for help, which is huge when it comes to the entrepreneurial lifestyle, or self-promoting, or, you know, we're all independent in that way. And just if you have a passion or a project that you want to be working on, like there is always a way to get there. You just have to be vulnerable, and you have to ask for help, and you have to talk about what you want. You have to talk about it as if it's going to happen, because that's when light bulbs turn on and people come to you, or people email you and say, I can help you with this, or we want to help people. You know, like Milana has been saying, like we're of service to others. Like people want to help people. So if you tell people you need help and you have this dream, then the people around you who love you will make it happen. So
those are powerful words.
Yeah, it's been great to listen to everyone's stories, and I just resonate with, I relate to everyone's journey, and it's great to talk to all of you.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you and everyone. Not everyone, maybe, a certain gender should go to Switch underwear and pick up some. Kathy, what do you have for us?
I think it's so important what Isabel just said, like asking yourself, how can I be of service today? Mm-hmm. Because people sometimes are afraid, number one, to reach out for help, but number two, they're not sure that the person that they're going to go to will have the answer to their question. And I always tell people, like, don't be afraid to ask me your question, because even maybe it's not in my scope of expertise, or I don't have the answer. If there's someone in my network who will, or I think can help you, I am more than happy to make that connection. I can get you down that path. So even if per se it's my coaching isn't your answer, or the books aren't your answer, don't be afraid to reach out, because networks are powerful things.
I definitely agree. That's why I can stand behind the whole Ask Sharifa brand, because I know that I don't know everything, but I do know that there's someone in my network, or someone within my network's network, that knows. So we'll figure it out together. Robert, what do you have for us?
I really enjoyed being on this panel. Usually, or more often than not, I do these things and it's stressful. This was just fun, and I really enjoyed listening to the other people. I mean, everybody had something very interesting to say. What I would like people to take away from my appearance today is that I would just hope that people read my books. I mean, I was saying before, I write to satisfy this primal urge, this primal need to communicate. And I love to get feedback from readers. I love to discuss my books with people who have read them. And, there's a reason that my books have been published and they endure, and that, people talk about them and keep writing about them. They're fun to read. They're very interesting. They show you the world, all three of them. They show you the world from a surprising, unexpected perspective. And I would just hope that, people make the effort to seek out my work and read them and get in touch with me.
Fantastic. Thank you. Milana, what do you have for us?
I don't want even one person on this beautiful planet to feel lonely or forgotten. So if for any reason you feel alone, or you feel that you are struggling with something, contact me. Simply send me an email. I will always respond. This is what I do. I help those who feel no one will listen to them. No one will even care. I listen and I care. So contact me. You will hear from me. I will help.
Okay, you say that now, Milana, and I'm gonna be emailing you all day. Nobody's listening to me. Nobody understands me, Milana. I need a friend. Okay, I'm gonna contact you. We're gonna talk. So, okay, I'm telling you. Dr. D, go ahead and take us out.
So the thing that I would share with everyone is to talk about your what and your why. We shared the why here on this segment today, but it's so important to let people know what your products and services are if you're in business or if you have a book, and what's your why. Sometimes we forget to share our why. We forget to talk about what started us on this journey. And that's so important when it comes to what we're really passionate about and what we want to share with the world. So don't be afraid to share your what and your why. You would be surprised at the impact that it has.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that is so Powerful. I want to thank you all for joining me on today's episode of the Roundtable Talk Show. Mary Lynn Mascot just said, love your sense of humor, Sharifa. Oh, thank you, Mary Lynn. I appreciate that. I want to thank you and everyone else who tuned into this show live, as well as everyone who is watching this show in the archives. Just because you didn't catch the live show doesn't mean you are not important. We still need your support. We still need you to go ahead and share this show. But please don't just watch this show. Please don't just share the show. Please support our guests. Visit their website. So many authors. You can get you some books and some underwear. How about that? That's what you get on today's episode of the Roundtable Talk Show. Now, maybe you want more ways that I can assist your business, or maybe you want to pick up your tickets to my New Year, New You 2-day teleconference on December 30th and 30th, or December 29th and 30th, or maybe you want to be a guest on the Roundtable Talk Show. Please visit my website at AskSharifa.com. Until tomorrow morning on Friday, TGIF at 8 a.m. Pacific time, everyone have a safe and a blessed day. Bye now.